Every animal that has ever lived has done one thing. It has died, and in the moments before, something happens in the body that we can measure with instruments but cannot read from the inside. The heart rate, the stress hormones, the sudden stillness. We can watch all of it on a monitor. What we can't see is whether anything is watching back. We tend to assume the answer is no, that an animal facing death feels only fear, the mechanical panic of a threat response, with no understanding of what the threat actually means. The standard position is clear. To know that you are going to die, to really grasp what is happening in that final moment, you have to be human. Everything else is just biology running its last program. But research is starting to complicate that something else may be going on in some of these animals, and science is still working out what to call it. Start with what dying does to the body, because that part we understand well. When an animal system registers that escape is no longer possible, that the predator has closed the distance, that there is no version of the next few seconds in which it gets away, it can enter a state with a specific name in the literature, tonic immobility. The muscles, moments ago rigid with the effort to flee, calmly go slack. Heart rate, which had doubled and doubled again, suddenly crashes. From the outside, it looks like surrender. Biologists are increasingly convinced it is not surrender at all. It is the body doing the last thing it has left to do. In predator-prey studies, animals caught in the jaws of a predator frequently go completely calm. For decades, this was read as a survival reflex. Play dead and the predator may lose interest. And sometimes that is exactly what it is. But the same response shows up in situations where playing dead offers no escape whatsoever, where the outcome is already settled, which raises the question the reflex explanation never answers. What is the stillness for when there is nothing left to survive? And then there is the brain. For most of medical history, the assumption was simple. When the heart stops, the brain goes dark immediately. But in 2013, a research team at the University of Michigan tested that assumption directly. They recorded the brain activity of rats in the moments around cardiac arrest, and they found something nobody expected. In the first 30 seconds after the heart stopped, the dying brain did not fade. It surged. A burst of highly organized, highly synchronized gamma waves, the same high-frequency activity associated in a living brain with focused conscious awareness, swept across the cortex. For a few seconds, the brain on its way out looked electrically more like a brain that was intensely awake than one shutting down. In 2022, a group of doctors who happened to be recording the brain of an 87-year-old man when he unexpectedly died caught the same signature in a human being, a surge of gamma activity in the seconds before and after his heart stopped, the kind of pattern the brain produces when it is retrieving memories. A later study followed 4 dying patients whose life support had been withdrawn and saw the same thing in 2 of them. The old picture that dying is simply the lights going off is no longer the whole story. Something happens in there and we just can't get inside it. The clearest behavioral evidence comes from elephants. When a member of a herd is dying, the others do not behave like animals that don't understand what is happening. They gather and try to lift the fallen animal back onto its feet, pushing with their trunks and tusks, and this sometimes go on for hours after the body has stopped responding. And when they finally realize it is over, they do not simply leave. They stand over the body for days, touching it gently and repeatedly with the trunk, an organ with more than 40,000 muscles and a density of nerve endings comparable to human fingertips. When an elephant runs its trunk over a body, it is examining it, gathering information the way we would with our eyes and our hands. Cynthia Moss, who has studied elephants in Kenya for over 40 years, recorded elephants returning to the exact spot where a family member died, even years later, to quietly investigate the bones that remained, running their trunks over the skull and tusks of a fellow familiar elephant that died long ago. This is not a general curiosity about death. When researchers laid out the skulls of several different species, the elephants consistently showed more interest in elephant remains than in the bones of any other animal. When a Samburu matriarch named Eleanor died in 2003, her relatives pulled and pushed at her body for nearly a week, some rocking back and forth, others simply standing in silence. When another old matriarch, Queen Victoria, died in 2013, a researcher returned to the carcass weeks later and found elephants from 3 separate families inspecting the bones. The scientist who has tracked that population since the 1990s describes it carefully. Elephants have a fascination with death that is genuinely difficult to interpret, and this is the part the reflex models can't touch. The threat is years gone, there is no biological reason to return. And yet they do. The case nobody who hears it forgets is Tahlequah. In July 2018, an orca known as J35 gave birth off the Pacific Northwest coast. The calf lived for about 30 minutes before it died. The mother did not let it go. For 17 straight days, across roughly 1,000 miles, she carried her dead calf with her, pushing it to the surface again and again as if to help her breath, with members of her pod helping her keep it afloat. There is no version of natural selection that rewards this. It costs the mother enormous energy and offers nothing in return. Whatever it was not strategy. It happened again in late December 2024. Tahlequah gave birth to a female calf, designated J61, but within about a week, the calf was dead, and once more, just like the first time, she lifted the small body to the surface and began to carry it, pushing it through the cold water of the Salish Sea for days. The scientist who has tracked her for years said there seems to be something about her as an individual that makes this behavior return. We do not know what that something is. Dolphin mothers have been documented carrying their dead calves at the surface for days, pushing them upward as though still trying to help them breathe. The mother stops eating. The rest of the pod sometimes slows down to stay with her. Researchers have watched this across multiple species, and from every angle we can measure, it looks like grief. And then there are the apes, where the resemblance gets harder to wave away. In 2010, at a safari park in Scotland, researchers recorded the final days of an elderly chimpanzee named Pansy. As she weakened, the others grew quiet and unusually attentive. They groomed her more than normal. In the moments around her death, they examined her body, lifting her limbs, leaning in close to her face, as if testing for something they already suspected was gone. Her adult daughter stayed beside the body through the entire night. For days afterward, the group was subdued, and they avoided the place where she had died. Decades earlier in Tanzania, Jane Goodall recorded something even harder to read. A young chimp named Flint, about 8 years old, lost his mother, Flo. He stopped eating. He pulled away from the others. He kept returning to the last place he had seen her alive and simply sitting there. Within weeks, Flint dies of grief. Scientists do the careful thing and ask what these animals actually have to work with. And here the picture gets uncomfortable. Elephants, great apes, and several cetaceans carry spindle neurons, specialized brain cells once believed to exist only in humans, associated with empathy, self-awareness, and fast social judgment. Many of these same animals pass the mirror test, recognizing the reflection as themselves and not another animal, which means they hold some concept of a self that exists and can be lost. There is even evidence that some of these animals grasp time, that they can hold on to a past and anticipate a future. Which brings us to the quietest evidence of all. Not how animals respond to another's death, but how some of them behave when facing their own. Veterinarians and wildlife rehabilitators describe a recognizable shift in certain dying animals. A turning away, a withdrawal, a stillness that reads less like panic and more like something settling with what is coming. Animals that have spent their entire lives in motion will sometimes seek isolation as the end approaches, leaving the group finding a place to be alone. Whether this is instinct or illness or something closer to awareness, the data cannot say. But the pattern is consistent enough that the people who witness it most often are the least likely to call it mere reflex. We as humans are the animal that buries its dead and names its grief. And we go looking for that same story in every still body and every mother who won't let go. The dolphin pushing a corpse upward may just be running the same motor program it runs for a living calf, with no idea the calf is gone. The calm in the predator's jaws may be nothing but a circuit tripping. The real danger is not that we see too little in these animals, it is that we see ourselves. The honest answer to whether animals know they are about to die is that we genuinely don't know. What the data shows is that certain animals, elephants, cetaceans, great apes, possibly others with the neural architecture for it, behave around death in ways that no simple threat response model can explain. They mourn, they return, they carry their dead. They withdraw at the end in ways that look to the humans watching like they understand what is happening. What the data cannot reach is the inside of those moments. The thoughts of the elephant standing over bones it came back to find. What the dolphin is feeling in the days she spends holding a body that will not breathe. Whether any of it means what it looks like it means, or whether we read knowledge of death into these animals because we are the one species that cannot stop thinking about our own, and so we find that thought everywhere we look. There is a version of this question that science will eventually answer more precisely. The tools are getting better. Neuroimaging, long-term behavioral tracking across whole populations, more rigorous documentation of what happens in the final hours. The data will accumulate. Some of what is uncertain now will become clearer. But the researchers who study this most carefully hold the question open. The animals don't answer.